Hello, fourth grade. I know you're looking at this title and you're thinking, that's boring. I already know the types of angles, acute, obtuse, and right. Easy, but it's time today for Types of Angles, Expanded Edition. You don't know all the types. Acute, obtuse, and right are three of them, but there's actually more. I know. Get excited. And while you're getting excited, please pause the video. Write the title of this presentation as the next blank page in your math notebook. And when you're done writing and when you're still excited, please unpause for Types of Angles, Expanded Edition. All right, so here we go. So, you know three types of angles. You know about acute angles. They are less than 90 degrees, so they can be as small as like 1 degree. Or they can be as wide as, 85, 89 degrees. But they have to be less than 90 degrees. Obtuse angles are more than 90 degrees, so like here would be 90 degrees, and that is more degrees than 90, so that's an obtuse angle. They can be even wider than that. They can go, kind of even out like this and still be obtuse. And you know about right angles, they have to have a specific measurement, 90 degrees. These acute angles can be anywhere from 1 degree up to 89 degrees. You can even do fractions, 89 and like 9/10 degrees or 99/100 degrees. But we generally just kind of say up to 89 degrees. Obtuse angles can be, above 90, all the way up to, almost 180. But right angles have to be just 90. That's it. That's the only measurement they can have. So there are two other kinds of angles, and I wish to present them to you today. So I will. Let me make an angle here. So as you can imagine, if I kind of actually let's start thinking here, type and measurement. So we know acute angles. I'm going to leave out the decimals, but maybe I'll put them in. Acute angles are from 1 up to 89 degrees. Less than 90 degrees, it's acute. And actually, you can include decimals. Like we could go all the way down to like, 1/10 of a degree up to like 89 and a fraction of a degree, but I won't bother with that. That's a little petty. Then we got right angles, which are 90 exactly. And then obtuse, which is anything more than 90. But, in the song and what we've said before, we've been saying if it's over 90, it's obtuse. Not exactly. That's not exactly fair, because what happens is it's not everything over 90. It's 90 up to a certain point. So it's like 91 up to, there's actually a maximum obtuse angle. So let me show you what I mean. So if I make an obtuse angle here, we can say it's fine to do obtuse like, barely over 90. That's an obtuse angle. And I don't know if I can rotate these. Can I? I can't. So I'll just get rid of it. And I could also make a wider obtuse angle. And I could also make an even wider obtuse angle way out here. But there's a maximum obtuse angle. What happens is once we get to an angle where it's actually just continues making go in the exact same direction the other way. So you think of the two rays making this angle being here and here. When it gets there, if you look on a protractor, if I've drawn it just right, which, let's face it, I probably haven't. If you measure an angle at some point, oh, I did, look at that. It starts at 0 and goes all the way to the maximum possible angle you can measure here, which is 180 degrees. And so that is a 180 degree angle. and they have their own special name. We call a 180 degree angle a straight angle because it makes a straight line. So once you get to 180, it's no longer obtuse. We would not call this an obtuse angle anymore. Once it hits 180, it's called a straight angle. So obtuse angles are like 91 up to 179, really like 179 and 9/10 or 99 hundredths or whatever you want. And then when we get to exactly 180, it gets a new name called a straight angle. So like right angles and straight angles, there's only one measurement they can possibly have. Acute angles and obtuse angles, there's lots of measurements they can possibly have. They have a whole range. Okay? So that's 4 of them. And then as you can imagine, if I go back to my angle, I actually could make the angle even wider than this. I could possibly have an angle that went even past 180 degrees, something like this. Where I'm not looking at this angle, this would be an obtuse angle. But I'm looking at one that goes 180 degrees, and then it even actually goes farther. So an angle that's like this. It's like acute, 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 right, obtuse, 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 straight, and then it keeps going. Almost like that. More than 180. And those have a name too. If it's more than 180, it even then gets another name called a reflex angle. Reflex angle. So that's more than 180. So I'm going to go back to my chart and say reflex more than 180 degrees. So, now I've got 5 different types of angles. Pretty big amount. But you get to have revealed to you the last 2 types of angles. So obtuse, acute, right, you knew before. Now we can add into the mix reflex angles. And we can add into the mix straight angles. So now there's 5 types of angles for you to know. Acute, obtuse, right. I know that took a little while to get used to those words. Now 2 more words I want to add to the mix for you to know. Reflex and straight. Okay. Open up your math notebook and we will do it together. So let's see. Why don't we do this? On we do, why don't we make an actually even bigger chart than I made? Why don't you make a 3-column chart? Leave yourself lots of room in the 3rd column to draw a few. So why don't we do name, measurement, and examples. Okay. So first 3 are probably pretty quick. Acute, you already know. The measurements are, I'm just going to use the whole numbers, even though that's not exactly precise. 1 degree up to 89 degrees. Can actually be a 0 and a fraction degrees up to 89 and a fraction degrees, but that's close enough. And draw yourself 2 examples. Let's make one where it kind of is like opens from, toward the right like they usually do, and maybe a second one where, they don't. Something that might be a right angle. Maybe one where they open the other way or something like that. So those are both acute angles, and oftentimes just to let yourself know where you're looking, we mark the angle like with this little part of a circle called an arc, kind of like that. The next one is right. Right angles have to be exactly 90 degrees. They can, we always see them like this, opening to the right like that, but they don't have to, It's still a right angle if it, is doing that. Something like that. We often, on a right angle, instead of putting the circle to show that we want it to be right, we usually put like that little square symbol in it. Like that. So it doesn't matter its direction, but it does matter its measurement. Then obtuse angles are 91 degrees. Excuse me. It's actually 90 and a fraction, but we'll just say 91 degrees up to, and now remember they're going to have a max. Instead of saying they can just be more than 90, we're going to stop them at 179 degrees. And we'll kind of draw your typical obtuse angle like that. But then also remember, they can open any direction. It doesn't really matter. They can go like that too. Just make sure you're clear that this is the angle. And here, this is the angle, as opposed to this one around the other side, which we could do too. Okay. Next is a straight angle. They are exactly 180 degrees. So we'll draw one this way. I kind of like to put a point in the middle so you know that it's like two different rays and not just a line. And they go like that. And again, they don't have to be horizontal. They could be like that. Wouldn't matter still. Those two rays still, no matter how they're oriented, they still make a straight angle. And then last but not least, we have a reflex. And they are more than 180. So those are harder to draw because you have to be really clear that, like, when I draw one, like say that, that's kind of a classic reflex angle, that you're looking here, not here, not at this obtuse angle on the other side. You're going all the way around kind of the longer direction, which can be hard to demonstrate. And they can be, they can go the other way too. So they can even go really far like this. You just have to, again, you have to be clear that you're talking about this angle more than 180, not this one on the inside. So that's called a reflex angle. So there you go. You're now an angle expert. You know that while I only told you about 3 before, there are actually 5 types of angles: acute, right, obtuse, and straight angles, and reflex angles. And now you're a pro. Please finish this up in your math notebook once you have it and you feel like you've got good command of these 5 vocabulary words. You're all set. See you tomorrow.